This is the lecture on grammar. I don't think grammar is the most interesting subject in the world, so I'm just going to work through it, say what I got to say. I will admit that Sister Miriam Joseph does make this more interesting than it, could possibly be. So I'm not saying she's the most. I'm saying it's more interesting than it could have been had somebody else written it. So she does a pretty good job kind of making this as thoughtful as possible and not just kind of working through some bland things. And she begins by making this very interesting distinction between general grammar and special grammar. What you and I learned, if we learned grammar at all, was probably something like special grammar. We learned the grammar of English, and in English there's a certain word order, and then there's subjects and verbs and objects and so on, and there's things that are particular to English as a language is called a special grammar. General grammar, as she defines it on page 47, is concerned with the relation of words to ideas and to realities. Now, that being said, she makes this first distinction, number one, in the reading questions. What is the difference between categorematic words and syncategorematic words? That's a nice mouthful. Syncategorematic words. Categorematic words, page 47, second to last paragraph on the page, are those which symbolize some form of being and which may accordingly be classified in the 10 categories of being, substance, and the 9 accidents. So categorematic words are words that refer to some being in reality. What are the things in reality that categorematic words represent? She's referring to the 10 categories of Aristotle. She lists them on page 24. I didn't have you read this, but I do want to go back and refer to it. What are the 10 categories? 10 categories are right there on page 24. Substance is the first category. So Aristotle wants to make a list. This she gets it from Aristotle. He wants to make a list of the things that the word is can kind of refer to. And so substance is the first category. So Father Andy is a human being. That's the category of substance. Quantity is a determination of the matter of substance, giving it parts distinct from parts. For example, tall. I don't know what parts distinct from parts means. Anything that can be quantified can fall under the accident of quantity. So substance is the first category. All the other 9, so there's 10 categories. Substance is the first one. It's on its own. The other 9 categories are called accidents. So there's substance and the 9 accidents. There's nothing particularly magical about the 9 accidents. In other places, Aristotle only lists 3 or 4. It's not something he's very tied to. It's not like the most important thing in the world, but it's what everybody learns, so we might as well learn them. What is the difference between substance and the accidents? A substance exists on its own, in itself. A human being exists in itself. 6 feet tall, that's one of my accidents. You can call that the accident of quantity. I am 6 feet tall. 6 feet tall has to exist in a substance. There is no such thing as, oh, look over there, 6 feet tall. No, 6 feet tall is a thing is 6 feet tall. All the accidents are accidents of a substance. Only substance exists on its own, independently. The accidents must exist in a substance. So the quantity, 6 feet tall, even taller than, or even tall, these are kind of quantitative accidents. It must be some substance that is 6 feet tall or taller or whatever. Quality is a determination of the nature or form of substance, for example. So some determination. Dark, gray-haired, any quality like that. Tan, he's smelly, whatever. These will all be quality. They're the accidents, the 10 categories in general, other than substance, they're all kind of overlap. Sometimes a thing can be more than one accident. But substance, quantity, quality. Relation is the reference which a substance or accident bears to another. For example, friend or near. So I am the brother of Chris. Brother of, so there's a relation between me and my brother Chris. That's one of the things that I am. There's no such thing as brother of that's not a substance. So it's always a substance in which this relation exists. Action is some activity that the substance is doing. So right now, what is my action? I am teaching. So Father Andy is a human, that's substance. Father Andy is 6 feet tall, quantity. Father Andy is gray-haired, that's quality. Father Andy is the brother of Chris, that's relation. Father Andy is teaching, that's action. Passion is the reception of a substance. So what's passively happening to me? I don't know. I mean, you, the substance, are learning. And I think, well, I guess that'd be an action too. It will be a passion. Let's say somebody walked into my room and just like slapped my back. Father Andy is being slapped. You see that? That's passion. Something that's happening to you. Time, or when, she has it when here, is position in relation to the course of extrinsic events with measured duration. Just, it's the time you're in. I don't know why she has to make this complicated. So time, right now it is, as at the time of this recording, July 22nd at 4:22 p.m. That's time. That's when Father Andy is right now. I exist right now, or I am teaching at 4:22 p.m. on whatever. Okay? Place, so time and then place, or where, in her words, where is position in relation to bodies which surround a substance. Just where, I don't know why she has to do this. Where is Father Andy? He is in El Cajon, California, at the seminary of Mar Abba the Great, where my room is, where this is being. So that's the place. Okay. Posture or position. Father Andy is seated. I am sitting in this chair. And then habiliment, habitus, or possession, consists of clothing, ornaments, weapons, which human beings by their art complement their nature. So Father Andy is wearing this shirt, wearing black, which I often do, and so on. So those are the 9 accidents. So the 10 categories are substance, and the 9 accidents. The 9 accidents are quantity, quality, relation, action, passion, when, where, posture, and habiliment, possession. I'm going to call it possession. That's page 24 and 25. Okay. Going back to the actual topic, page 47, categorematic words refer to those 10 categories. And those 10 categories are things in the world, in nature. Okay. Whereas syncategorematic words are words, go to just the next paragraph on page 47, our words are those which have meaning only along with other words. For taken by themselves, they cannot be classified in the categories. They do not symbolize being. Rather, they are mere grammatical cement by means of which we relate in a sentence the categorematic words which do symbolize being. For that reason, they are sometimes called form words. Syncategorematic words are of 2 kinds: definitives, which point out substances, and connectives, which join either words or sentences or subject and predicate. What is an example of a syncategorematic word? The word the doesn't point to anything in nature. It is a word that is useful in grammar. It helps relate words to other words. It helps particularize. I'm not talking about just any man. I'm talking about the man, and so on. Okay. That's it. That's an interesting distinction. I don't want to go into these different types of this and different types of that. I'm going to go to the stuff that I think is the most important mainly in composition of sentences. What is a substantive? Substantive. What is a substantive, and what are the grammatical characteristics of substantives? A substantive is, page 49, according to the kind of reality it refers to, a substantive symbolizes either a concrete substance or an abstraction. A concrete substance is an object as it exists in itself, and an abstraction, next paragraph, is an accident conceived. I don't think it's an accident. I have met a philosophical disagreement with her here. Long story short, a substantive is some kind of reality, whether it's either a concrete substance or an abstraction. What's a concrete substance? Father Andy is a concrete substance. It's something that you can point to. An abstraction is humanity. You can't point to humanity, but it's still a substance. It's a substantive. Okay? In other words, what type of traditional grammatical words refer to substantives? Nouns and pronouns. So nouns and pronouns are the main substantives that refer to either a concrete substance or an abstraction. So the proper noun, Father Andy is my name, proper noun, that is a substantive. It's a concrete substance. Humanity is a noun that is referring to an abstraction. Or pronouns, when you say he walked over there, he is referring to a concrete substance, whatever person you're talking about. Those are substantives. And what are the grammatical characteristics of substantives? Go to the next page, page 50. The grammatical characteristics of substantives are number, page 50, number, which is singular or plural. So one man, many men, or two men, or something like that. There's actually some languages that have a dual case, which refers to exactly two. But for our uses, singular or plural. Hopefully you know this already. Gender, this differs between languages. So a substantive may be masculine, feminine, neuter, or common. I'm not sure what common would mean. In many languages, you only have masculine and feminine, and even like non-living objects like chair. The word for chair, kursia, in Aramaic, over here, chair. Kursia is a masculine noun, even though it's not a male or female. But there's just no neuter in many languages. In all Semitic languages, there's only masculine and feminine gender. English has the blessing of having a neuter. So when we refer to the chair, we can say it. That's a neuter pronoun. In some languages, there's no neuter. There's no way to say it. Everything is either he or she. That's just the way some languages are just built. So that's gender. Masculine, feminine, or neuter. Person, this is a characteristic much more important to pronouns. What is person? First person, second person, third person. In pronouns, the first person refers to yourself. I'm number one, right? First person. So I is the first person pronoun. Second person is you. When you're talking to somebody, you say you. You is the second person. And then when you're talking about somebody, that's the third person, he or she. So those are the first, second, and third person singular pronouns. I, you, he, and she. The first person plural is we. You're referring to yourself, but as a group, plural, we. You plural. So the word you in English, you say it to one person. We also say it to a group of people. Maybe in the South, maybe you guys are in Texas or something, it's you all or y'all. That's kind of a second person plural pronoun. And then they is the third person plural pronoun. Again, you might know this already, hopefully you do, but if not, here you go. Finally, the last characteristic of a substantive is the case. Case shows the relationship of a noun or pronoun to other words in the sentence. This is actually number 3. What are the 4 cases of substantives? There's actually more cases when you do a special grammar in particular languages, but these are 4 very basic ones. Let's talk about what case means. Case is talking about how that word is related to other words in that sentence. Nouns in English do not have case. Another way to say it is that they are not declined. They don't have a declension. In Latin and Greek, and I think in German, nouns are declined. So that means if the noun is used in one way in the sentence, it takes one form. If it's used in another way, it takes a different form. In English, we don't do this. It's the man killed the king killed the man. Those are used in different ways, and they take exactly the same form. So in English, nouns, we don't have case. Pronouns have case. What is the nominative case? The nominative is the case of the subject. So what is the subject? It's the thing that's doing the verb. So let's think about that for a second. Let's talk about killed. Okay, we're going to use the verb killed. We're going to be violent today. So let's say Father Andy killed. I don't want to use myself as an example of kill. Anyway, whatever. Jim killed Frank. All right. What's the subject? Well, the subject is whatever's doing the verb. Jim is the subject of the verb killed. Jim killed Frank. Jim is the subject because he's doing the killing. Okay? And any verb requires a subject. So what's special about this? Well, how do we do this in pronouns? Let's say I'm not going to say Jim. I want to say he killed Frank. Now I'm using a pronoun. He has a case. We do not say, here's my point of all this. We do not say him killed Frank. You see the difference between he and him? He is the nominative. It's the subject. You say he when the person you're talking about did the verb. You say him when, in the accusative case, Jim killed, instead of saying Jim killed Frank, you say Jim killed him. Him is the accusative, the case which names the object which receives the action. You see that? So he and him are nominative and accusative. All right? And we would never say, once you learn the language, you never say him killed Frank. Nor would you ever say Jim killed he. You would always say he killed Frank, and you'd always say Jim killed him. He and him are very clearly nominative and accusative cases. So that's the first and last one. What's the genitive is the case which names the possessor. His. So it is his baseball bat. So anything that has to do with possession, we don't say it is him baseball bat. We don't say it is he baseball bat. We say it is his baseball bat. So he is the nominative. His is the genitive. Him is the accusative. Now we have a glitch in English. The dative is the case which names the term to which the action proceeds. That's annoying. Dative has to do with who it's given to. So the problem with English is the dative and accusative pronouns take the same form. So let's think about this for a second. I slapped. Why am I always doing these violent things? I gave I gave him my pen. What's the object of the verb? The pen is the object. The pen is the thing that's being given. What's the subject is I. Father Andy gave him my pen. What's him doing there? Him is the dative. The dative is the person to whom the object is being given or something like that. So let me say a little more clearly. Dative goes with to or for. That's really what the dative is. I gave it to him. As opposed to, I killed him. I killed him. Him is the accusative. He is the object of the verb. I gave my pen to him. Him, in that case, is the dative. So in English, those two take the same form. It's a little bit confusing. Just remember, nominative is when you're doing the verb. Genitive is when it's possession, his. So nominative is he. I'm writing in my book. You should write it in yours. Genitive is his. Dative and accusative are both him. But the difference is the dative is what goes with to or for. I gave my pen to him. The pen is in the accusative, is the object that is being given. Him is the object to whom, is the person to whom it is being given. Okay, that's the dative. Okay, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Good? That's that. We're going pretty fast today. Hopefully this is nice and short. What is the definition of a verb? She has a very interesting definition of a verb. Next page, 52. Bottom of page 52. Verbs and their functions. There are 4 functions of a verb. A verb expresses an attribute along with the notion of time. A verb indicates tense. A verb expresses mode or mood. A verb asserts. What is the definition of a verb? A verb is a verb expresses an attribute along with the notion of time, is the essential function of a verb and constitutes its definition. A verb is, I want you to memorize this word for word. I know I told you memorizing is not that fun. Just do it. A verb expresses an attribute along with the notion of time. So a verb says something about a subject. A verb says something about a substantive, a noun or a pronoun. It says something about him or it along with the notion of time. Let's contrast what this could be. So, Stinky Jim. Stinky is not a verb. Because Jim is always stinky, time is irrelevant. Stinky Jim, so stinky is an adjective. Stinky Jim is an adjective. Stinky is an adjective when you say Stinky Jim. Jim is walking. So now it's an attribute. It's saying something about Jim, but it has to do with time. Why? Because he's walking right now. He is walking. And now is a time. Jim will be walking. That's in the future tense. Jim was walking. That's in the past tense. So time has to somehow be involved for something to be a verb, for a word to be a verb. Okay? That's the definition of a verb. What is a tense? Go lower on that page. Tense is the relation between the time of the act spoken of, and the time of speaking of it. Oh, that is a mouthful. Jeez. So the tense of a verb, when do you use the present tense? If I speak of an action while it occurs, I use the present tense. So she's right, just kind of a confusing way to say it. What is the tense of a verb? It's when you're saying it compared to when it happened. If you're saying something while it's happening, it's the present tense. If I'm speaking after the thing happened, I use the past tense. Does that make sense? The thing's already happened, it's done. I'm using the past tense. The bird flew. If I'm speaking before something happens, I use the future tense. The bird will fly. In addition to these, there are the present perfect, the past perfect, future perfect tense. The perfect tenses are confusing. I don't even want to talk about them. It's when we say, I had gone to the store. I went to the store. I had gone to the store. You see, it's kind of like further in the back, further in the past. The present perfect, or the present progressive, I was going. The difference between those, I don't find that important to explain because we already have a kind of instinctual sense or understanding of what they are. In English grammar, there are 2 forms in every tense: the simple, I think, and the progressive, I am thinking. What's in between I think and I am thinking? One kind of implies that the process is ongoing even more so. In the present and past tenses, there's a 3rd form, the emphatic, I do think, I did think. That's fine. I really want you to understand how the past, present, and future tenses really are defined. I think it's a thought, even if you know your grammar, maybe you never thought about this way, that what the tenses mean is a relationship between when you're speaking and when the act happened. That is an interesting way to think about it. Man, I'm going real fast today. I'm sure nobody's going to complain. What are the moods of verbs? Number 6, page 54. Mode or mood asserts the manner in which the subject and predicate are related as certain, possible, conditional, etc. Okay, so in what way, in what manner are these subject and predicate related? Let's take a look. An indicative mood asserts the relation as a matter of fact, with certainty. The car raced past. He wished me success. Most of the time we're going to use an indicative mood. I'm just indicating this is what happened. As opposed to a potential mood asserts the relation as possible or contingent. Examples are, a rose may be white. This acorn may become an oak tree. The brakes might have been defective. So if there's anything that is a possibility, you use the potential mood, not the indicative mood. I am going to the party. That is the indicative mood. I might come to the party. That's the potential mood. So anything that has to do with might or may or possible, it's possible that I'll go. Anything like that, that's the potential mood. Interrogative mood is a question. Who spoke? So you're interrogating, you're asking. You see how that's different than saying, you did it. No, did you do it? That's the interrogative mood. A volitive mood seeks the gratification of volitions. It's like, let us pray. That's a volitive mood. It's also called the subjunctive. It could also be, she's including this, in this, an imperative. So a command, go eat your broccoli. That's a command. It's an expression of a wish. So she's including in the volitive mood imperatives and what we would call subjunctives. And then in Greek, there's something called the optative, which is a even more polite subjunctive. So what's an imperative? An imperative is a command. Go eat. A subjunctive is, could you eat, please? Would you mind eating? Let us pray. Let's go. It's not exactly a command, but it's like kind of like encouraging people to go. And then an optative, she says optative or hortatory. It's really special to Greek and maybe a couple other languages. It's just an even more polite way to say let us pray, but we don't even have one. English is less polite than Greek is, so we don't even have that. So those are the four moods or modes. Indicative, you're stating a fact. Potential mood, you're stating it as possible. Interrogative, where you're asking a question. And then volitive, which is you're expressing some kind of wish, whether it's a command or a kind of invitation. Half an hour lecture. You guys owe me. Last question. What is the difference between a transitive verb and an intransitive verb? Bottom of page 55. Classes of verbs. There is transitive and intransitive. A transitive verb expresses action that begins in the subject and goes across transire to the object, receiver. Throw is a transitive verb. It needs an object. You don't say I threw. There has to be something that you threw. I threw the pen. So throw is a transitive verb. I threw the pen. Whereas sleep is an intransitive verb. It doesn't need an object. It's just enough to say I slept. You don't have to sleep something. So an intransitive verb does not need an object. I slept. I thought. In fact, the word to eat can be transitive or intransitive. You can say I ate the hamburger, so it can be transitive, but it's enough to say I ate. Are you hungry? No, I ate. So some verbs can be either one depending on how you're using them. But that's the difference between transitive and intransitive. She goes into quite a few really detailed things. I don't really want to worry about verbals. Oh, there's the infinitive, the participle, the gerund. If you don't know what the infinitive is, page 57, it's right there. An infinitive is an abstract substantive and can therefore perform all the grammatical functions. So the infinitive is to think. It is good to think. That's the infinitive. It's not kind of disconnected from time. The gerund, it can perform all the functions of a substantive, but it has the same form. So thinking is the gerund, as opposed to think. It is good to think. Thinking is good. One's an infinitive, one's a gerund. That's fine. Participle. John thinking clearly solved the problem. I'm not going to teach you actual English grammar right now. I'm assuming you either know it or you can learn it on your own. You're a college student. Adjectives, I assume what you know. I'm sure you know what an adjective is. They describe substantives, so they describe nouns or pronouns. And then adverbs describe verbs. So he ran quickly is a adverb because it's describing how he ran. Ugly Jim ran quickly. Ugly is an adjective, quickly is an adverb. Then she talks about the article. The indefinite article is a man is the indefinite article. The definite article is the man. Points out a particular individual. I don't want to talk about the rest of this. It's kind of boring. Anyway, I hope you learned something. If not, that means you had a good, grammar teacher in high school. If you learned something, don't feel bad, because I will tell you myself, I did not learn English grammar until I was in college in the seminary, and I learned Latin. And when I learned Latin, I finally understood English grammar. And the whole thing about subject, verb, and object, I didn't even know. I wasn't even conscious of it until I was in college. So it shows, you're always learning. All right. That's it for today. That's grammar. Those are the 7 questions. And next class, we will talk about terms. We're going to transition. Terms have to do with grammar, but it's also a kind of way to start talking about logic. So we're going to start really talking about logic next week.